What time of the day or night was it?
This was about 9 a.m., Your Honor.
On a weekday or a weekend or what?
I don't recall with this,
Yeah, it all blends, doesn't it?
Days get blurry. I'd say it was a week.
Just blends.
This is the plaintiff, John Gandara. He says his neighbor, the defendant, is one rude guy, and he's had to put up with his obnoxious behavior for the last 3 years. One day, the defendant had his workers dig a trench on his property because he was erecting a fence. He told him he couldn't just trespass onto his property. The workers made a huge mess, and he's here suing his nasty neighbor for the $500 it's going to cost him to clean up the defendant's mess. This is the defendant, Daniel Tynan. He says he was just being neighborly when he replaced the fence separating the two properties, and he was trying to make the plaintiff's side of the fence match his side. The stubborn plaintiff refused to listen to reason. He refuses to let him fix his side of the fence, and he refuses to pay him $500 to hire someone else to do it. He's accused of not mending fences.
All parties, please use your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Mr. Gandara, you have been neighbors with Mr. Tynan for how long?
It'll be 3 years in December.
Okay. And what happened here?
On or about July 27th, Your Honor, I heard a noise through my bedroom window, and I looked outside and I saw somebody I didn't recognize in the yard. And I saw the defendant on the other side of the fence giving instructions to this person. I immediately proceeded to go through the
What time of the day or night was it?
This was about 9 a.m., Your Honor.
On a weekday or a weekend or what?
I don't recall with this,
Yeah, it all blends, doesn't it?
Days get blurry. I'd say it was a week.
Just blends. Okay, so go on.
And so I proceeded to go outside, and I said, I basically asked what the heck was going on. Why are you guys in my yard? And the defendant said, oh, I thought you'd like how it would look. And I told him, that's not how things worked. He didn't have authorization to be in my yard. I didn't know who was on my yard. And then we never had any prior discussions of him ever performing anything on my yard. And then when I got close to the fence, I realized he had dug a 25-foot long trench about a foot wide on my side of the fence with rebar sticking out. Yeah.
Okay. Anyways. What, Mr. Tynan, what's going on?
Well, little John has I think, dreams of grandeur. He thinks it's his yard. He hopes someday to own this property, but this property is owned by a very large conglomerate. He rents this property. And besides renting this property, I've been here over 30 years, and I've worked with several different owners, and I've been with several different owners, and I actually ordered that fence to be put in years ago. And not just that, the fence is actually on this side of the property. It's on our property. And also, I have permission from the owners to work on that property. So this man, because like I said, he's got this Napoleon complex, and he feels that it's an unused portion of his yard. So what I did is the fence that we put in years ago the foundation started collapsing on this fence. So what I was going to do is pour a curb that would support both sides of the fence and keep the fence so the fence could actually stay and not have to be replaced. And I'd have to maybe walk on 2 or 3 feet of his side to do this, where 2 or 3 feet on that side is our side. But it would look better because it would finish that curb.
It
So
would
that's
look
why
better. It would be more secure for you, which is what you wanted. You wanted it to be secure.
Actually-
But what's the problem? Why can't you knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, this is my plan. I want it to look good on your side, but I also want it to be secure. Why can't you communicate? Why do you have to insult him 6 times
ma'am.
in your first paragraph? Napoleon complex, Little John. I'm not getting it. Is there some problem between you two?
Your Honor, I met this guy maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So this guy, he moves in and never saw him, never talked to him. But I did, not more than 3 days before I started this curb stuff, I met him on the sidewalk in front of both our properties. He came down, I was there in my wheelchair, and then he told me some of his projects that he was doing. I told him the project that I was doing. He noticed that I was doing a fence on the lower portion. And I said, yes, I'm going to continue that up on the side. And so it was only going to take like a half hour to do this thing. So when I went up there 3 days later,
I don't think you're getting the
doing it.
point. The point is, you admit that you dug a trench on his property, right? You're saying
Not
he's a
his
renter,
property.
so it doesn't matter.
No, I said it's not his property.
When you say it's not his property, you're saying because he's a renter, or are you saying it's fully on your land? What is it you're saying?
Well, the
It's
part
on
that
his
I'm
land.
working on is on my land.
Look, this here,
My property goes 3 to 4 feet on his side.
were
see
you
that pallet
or
right there?
were you or were you not on his side of his property that he rents? The property that he rents. Don't quibble with me. I'm trying
course
to
I was.
understand.
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
Of course you were. So you were definitely on the property that he rents. Now, let me ask you, Mr. Gandara, have you two had some kind of problems?
No, Your Honor, and I'm glad you gave me a moment to address the multiple lies the defendant has just told you. He tries to insinuate that he's lived there for 30 years. His mother and aunt live there. He was recently released from prison about 6 months ago and arrived here. He's been nothing but a headache. He's a nuisance. He, urinates in front of their house. We've deliberately looked the other way and not said anything because we want to, keep things peaceful. He curses all day at his workers when he's working out there. We haven't said anything until he came into the yard. He further states to you, Your Honor, that somehow the property on my side of the fence is actually his, but he erected a fence 3 feet closer to his property. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I think he admits that he was on your property. Now, you had said something about having permission from the owners. Tell me what you're referring to.
I have permission from the portfolio director of that major conglomerate. You'll see it's an email to me. It's giving me full permission to do the work as long as it's at my expense. Anytime we improve property,
Yeah, I'm
to
sorry.
do
I
this.
want to see where they say that you have permission to go on your neighbor's yard. That's the part I'm looking for.
it's right there, right in front of you.
Where? You have permission to pour a border fence curb to hold back the dirt that is exposing the fence footings at your own expense. How long will this take so we can inform our residents? The idea that you would be on someone else's property without their consent, you seem to think that when you're a renter, you have absolutely no rights. You are paying good money to rent every portion of that house. And for you to say that you could just go on there and tough for little Napoleon, Little John, because he doesn't own and I own, and I can just have my workers out there. What planet are you living in? You're a contractor. You know you can't just go into people's property without their permission.
I understand.
It's ridiculous.
That's why I got permission, ma'am, from the owner.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. What kind of human are you? Why don't you knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. Is it all right? Because if you'd done that, you know where you would be today? Hawaii, not here. You wouldn't be here, okay?
I talked
if
to
you
him
had
3
had the
days prior,
simple courtesy. Talk to him 3 days prior. You just said nothing about I'm going to have workers crawling on your yard. You think that's the same thing? It's absolutely not the same thing. So what ended up happening with the actual project? That's what I want to know.
Your Honor, I had him immediately stop whatever they were doing. I told him I addressed the defendant, said he had no authorization to come onto the property. As a matter of fact, what he just represented to you, he got that authorization after the incident. He went to go cover his tracks. And,
What's the day that he came
no
onto the
prior
property?
The 27th of July.
And your letter's dated September 8th? Where's your authorization
Right.
before the 27th of July, Mr. Tynan?
Verbal. I have it on my phone.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, ma'am.
Very convenient.
If you know,
Convenient.
I've worked on this property before with
Your Honor,
with
he
their
lies
maintenance
again, Your Honor.
department.
Mr. Tynan, this is so simple. It's so simple. It's like we are not savages, okay? There are rules and common courtesy. You don't send your workers to dig a 26-foot trench on someone else's property without their consent. And you don't have their consent because he's saying he didn't give you consent. And your answer isn't, yes, he did. Your answer is, I told him I was working on fences and I got it from the owner when you didn't have it from the owner. You got it in September. But it doesn't matter. The renter is the person you have to get consent from. You might have to get it from the owner also, but you definitely have to get it from him. You can't just act like you own the place. You don't. What is it that's happening now, though? What is the trench still there? What's going on?
Yes, Your Honor. This trench is still there. I didn't want to do anything until I had this date with the court. As you've said many times, más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo, and I didn't want to get my hands dirty in something that he might be setting me up.
The devil knows more from being old than from being the
Old,
devil.
yeah.
That's what I tell my
That's
kids
right,
all
Your
the
Honor.
time. But honestly, Mr. Tynan, this is pretty basic. I mean, it's just, it's like really basic manners, and law. $500
Your
verdict
Honor,
for the
it may.
plaintiff.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the judge finds for the plaintiff he is going to get the $500. Now, Mr. Tynan, you acted like you wanted to say something to the judge right at the end of the court case. Did you want to say something? And if so, what was it?
Well, she didn't want to look at any of the exhibits that show that that is our property that the fence is on. So since she just wants to deal it off, well, that's her problem.
Now, why did you tell the judge you'd lived there for 30 years when apparently you've only been there for 6 months? I mean, that was kind of a little lie, wasn't it?
He's been here 3 years. He has no idea. I got back 2 years ago from federal prison for white collar crime, and prior to that, which I was only out for 5 years, I was here, and I live in Thailand and California. So
Listen,
he has no clue.
the bottom line, sir, is common decency. You could have gone over and talked to him. Why didn't you do that? That's what the judge really was trying to get across to you. You didn't do that.
Well, I was trying to explain to her that 3 days prior to that, we were sitting in the damn in the driveway there for close to a half hour talking about his projects and my projects. It is what it is.
All right, well, look, it looks like you got a little feud going here between the two of you. Anyway, you owe him the $500. That has to be paid. Mr.
That's no
Gandara,
big
let me
deal.
ask you, obviously you're satisfied. Let me ask you, what do you think this is going to do to the relationship with your neighbor?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Doug. With scoundrels, you have to deal with them with the law. That's all they understand. He still lives at home with mommy, so he's been probably enabled for many years with his bad behavior. And the only way you deal with a mama's boy is through the law, and that's exactly what I did.
Thank you very much, sir. And that'll wrap it up for the case. Let's listen to the judges now in another session of After the Verdict.
Right from Jump Street here, you had the defendant sniping at the plaintiff, the first words out of his mouth, trying to belittle him or make fun of him, and it didn't escape your notice.
No, I don't think that's ever good form for someone
Pro
who
tip
goes
for
to,
litigants, okay?
Yeah, not a good idea.
Judges hate that.
Yeah.
They hate it.
Don't come out of the box rude.
And they might hold it against you, so don't go doing that.
But it was so consistent with the way he behaves in his life.
Right. These guys might be better off with maybe like a brick fence or something.
Exactly.
About 10 feet high. Maybe things will smooth out then a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable.
Right.
But man, it's just so simple. All
Even
you
in
have
the-
to do is be polite and
Exactly.
use common sense.
And they couldn't do that even in the hallway. They're still
No,
sniping at
I
each
know.
other.
I know.
Good God.
Okay, so Julie wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, what can people do right now if they can't afford their rent due to the pandemic? Are they protected? Here's the situation. There are cities and states that have laws that create moratoriums where people are excused if they fall behind in rent. But if you don't have such a law in your city or state, the reality is it's not a defense because you don't have money. This is cruel, but it's the law. And that will do it for this case. The litigants are inside the courtroom for the next.
These are the plaintiffs, Porter and Rena Denson. Porter says he and his wife rented a room in the defendant's house. And let's just say things didn't work out so well. Rena and the defendant's wife got into an altercation. They moved out, and now the defendants won't return the $650 in rent and security they paid. That's why they're suing. These are the defendants, Rosemary and Frank Solomon. Rosemary says she's the minister of her church, and the plaintiffs are members, and they rented them a room in their house. The night they moved in, it soon became evident they fought like cats and dogs, and that wasn't going to fly in their home. Porter also drank juice right out of the carton, and that's simply disgusting. Owe them a refund? No way. They're accused of bad landlording. The defendants have filed a countersuit for $5,000 for defamation because they spread lies to the church community, which she will donate to charity if she wins.
All parties, please use your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiffs say they rented a room in the defendant's house and they were treated horribly. But the defendants claim that they drank juice out of the bottle and then put it back in the fridge. Yuck. It's the case of let's get ready to rumble.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Mr. and Mrs. Denson, you were in need of renting a room, and Mr. and Mrs. Solomon rented you that room, correct?
No, ma'am, incorrect. We were living in the extended stay, paying $700 a week, and Mrs. Solomon spoke to my wife and told her that's a lot of money, and they can come. We can come and stay with them. We didn't even ask to stay with her. We were not needed for anything.
All right. So you rented a room in the defendant's home, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what was the agreement?
The agreement was to pay $725 a month.
So the agreement was $725 a month, and did you pay a security deposit?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
How much?
Initially, the agreement, Your Honor, was for $700. After Mrs. Solomon spoke with her husband, it was asked also of us to pay $300 as a security.
So the answer is $300 security deposit. So you pay the $725 and you pay the $300 and you move in, and how does it go?
I move in, Your Honor, from March through May. The defendant, Miss Rosemary Solomon, and her husband attend the same church as I do. My husband is not a member of that church. I am a minister also, and Mrs. Solomon invited me because I had shared with her what we had gone through, because she and I were friends. He's someone who I respected highly and not loved. So she said to me in a conversation, she said, I would like for you to move in here because you are paying too much to stay in an extended home, extended stay. And I said, oh my God, thank you. And she can recall I cried on the phone at her generosity and her opening her heart to me and her home to say, come, stay with me. And
Especially as soon as COVID started, right?
Just before COVID.
Yeah. All right, so what went wrong?
Well, I believe, Your Honor, as I speak for myself, that my husband and her husband never actually saw eye to eye. Her husband, I do not believe, wanted us to move in there in the first place. At the initial meeting, Your Honor, her husband said, this is not going to work. And I did not say anything because Rosemary Solomon is my friend, and she wanted me to move in there. So I allowed her husband to speak because he is her husband. So then.
Okay, let's put a pause in this just one second, because you're talking, Rosemary's nodding, so I want to talk to the men and find out what the problem was. Mr. Denson, what was the problem? Because I have to get to the bottom of whether you're entitled to any money back. What was the problem? Go
I
ahead.
can tell you what the problem is. A difference in culture, and it's a different where people believe their beliefs. I was never.
Be more specific.
I will. I take care of my wife. My wife had never bought a house in her name. 37 years we've been married. I take care of everything. My wife don't buy me cars. I buy her cars. Everything in our home, I have took care of my wife for 37 years. I don't live in her house.
Mr. Denson, I'm not sure how that explains why you guys ended up not being. So get to the point, because women can buy cars and houses. So I'm not impressed. I just need you to get to the point of why it is that you guys didn't get along.
I'm
Okay.
getting to the point because he lives in his wife's house. She does all the financial situation, and he.
That's none of your business. But it's none of your business, Mr. Denson. Okay, Mr. Solomon, you tell me, what was the problem that people didn't get along? What was the issue, Mr. Solomon?
Okay, first issue is, the first week they came in to move into the house, for the security deposit, they did not have the money. And so what we did do, they paid the rent part, but the check wasn't good. So he told me to wait till that Friday before I can cash the check. So that started off wrong. That's why I said it's not going to work out.
Yeah, okay. And so you agreed to let them pay half of the security deposit.
Correct. But what happened is I did not give them a key to the house until the security deposit was paid in full. That's why I gave them a key. I think that was starting an attitude with her husband, because said y'all can move in, but you're not going to get a key till we get all our money. And that probably what started the issue with them.
All right. And so how long did they live there?
It was about 2 to 3 months. They came in March and left in May.
And how did you all get along?
Well, for the most part, he seemed like he had an attitude, and he didn't realize we was doing them a favor. Because like I said, it was after COVID. COVID kind of started like a couple of weeks after they came here. But he just a nasty old man. This man, he was going to the refrigerator, taking stuff out the refrigerator, drinking it, putting it back in there. And I told us to do it. COVID going on. Don't be doing nothing like that. I mean, that's just common sense. But he's a Neanderthal man or something.
Mr. Denson, he's now described to me what problems he had with you. Can you tell me what problems you had with him?
No, I wasn't being facetious when I said what I did. I know it's not my business. It's a culture of what person being jealous of another.
What was, okay. You think he's jealous of you?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And what happened is, it's not that we didn't have the money. That's a lie. We didn't tell him we didn't have the money. I don't want to get into details, but someone fraudulently.
Details is what I specialize in. So at any point, who decides that this has to end? It's a month-to-month tenancy. Who decides that it's going to end? Do you leave, or do they tell you to leave? Which is it, Mr. Denson?
We left after my wife paid the rent for May. We left on May 5th. May 5th or May 6th because my wife had a conversation with Mrs. Rose, and they had a disagreement, and I checked my wife into a hotel
because I chose not to return.
She chose not to return until I got a condo. I got a condo Mother's Day. I moved my wife into a condo Mother's Day. So I was going to try to stay.
So you move out in May. How does it work? It's May 5th, and that's when you decide to leave. And what happens? Go ahead, Ms. Denson. You may speak. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. What happened was I was at work, and Mrs. Solomon called me. She believed, and she can attest to this, that I had said to her she couldn't go into her bathroom. I think she was offended, and my friend called me at work. I could not respond, and I told her that. And she says, wait a minute, you're going to hear me. And I says, no, I can't. I'm being summoned at work, and I can't. I said, but you're mistaken. She said, this is my house. I can use any bathroom I want. I said, of course. I have a college degree. I'm an educator. You're my friend. This is your house. If you have to go to the bathroom, I wouldn't expect you to go upstairs. You can, of course, use this bathroom because I'm a very clean woman. And even when Mr. Solomon called my husband a Neanderthal, no, it was his juice, Your Honor. And she told me she didn't like it. She came to me about it. And I went to my husband and said, don't drink out of it because she does not want. He's not a Neanderthal for drinking out of something that's his. And we don't have to be rude and use this. We're Christians. We should not even be before this whole. Rosemary Solomon is my friend.
Mrs. Solomon, I
And
haven't
I
heard
will
from
know.
you. Let me hear from you what you think the problem was. Do you also think it was the men, or you think it was just everybody and it was a bad situation?
First of all, you, and I want to thank you so much for being on this. Never have I been sued in my life. But being here, I'm very hurt, disappointed. Me and Miss Denson, we get along great. Miss Denson and I, we talk, we pray. I pulled Miss Denson from a place she was. Mr. Denson was a very jealous, controlling man. Mr. Denson would disrespect his wife in front of me. There was a time I said, Mr. Denson, this is a place in this era we don't do that. You've been in my home, you never heard me argue. What started, Mr. Denson was outside in the parking lot, cursing and yelling at his wife. I called Rena. I said, Rena, your husband cannot do this in this neighborhood. We don't do that. Mr. Denson also see a picture of my grandbaby in the living room. He began to call me, ask me, who was that? She's sexy. Her leg is long. She's pretty. I said, Mr. Denson, that's my grandbaby. My husband felt that Mr. Denson was been getting off in a picture he see of my grandbaby. Several times Mr. Denson called me. He said he want to be.
All right, hold on. I got it. I got the flavor. Let me just ask a question. You say we don't have to return the security deposit and we don't have to return half of May because there are damages. Now let's talk about your damages. Oil spots that you talked about. These oil spots, according to you, those were left by the plaintiff's car?
Yes, Your Honor, and that was left by the plaintiff car. He drive on the lawn, he left it there.
Broke the sprinkler system.
He broke the sprinkler system.
I'd like to see a picture of that broken sprinkler you talked about.
I have the water not coming up. One thing about being in Florida, it rain every day. I haven't changed it yet. Plus,
I live in Florida, and you don't need to live in Florida to know how sprinklers work. All I want is proof that there's a broken sprinkler. Do you have that?
So you could go there and take the picture. If you wait, you could go and take the picture,
Yeah,
Your
I'm
Honor.
going to take a picture right now and bring it back
Because
to
I
you.
thought he sent it.
Yeah,
Go bring
take a
it.
picture right now. All right.
And can
Go
I
ahead.
finish talking, Your Honor? Miss Denson move up my home on the 31st of May. On the 30th, I sent picture on the 31st, the 30th of May, there was stuff in the room. Second of all, in the contract, it said each party should give each other 15 days notice. Your Honor, I don't care about the deposit. It's the principle. I didn't know they were moving. I called Miss Denson at work. I said, where you been, girl? I ain't see you. She said, well, we at my son, or we at a hotel. I said, well, what, you move?
Okay. This is a picture that you have where you've put some little guy with a jug or something. I don't know what you got going on there. This is how the room looked when?
That was on the 31st of May, Your Honor, that they still have their stuff in the room. All their clothes was gone. I said you have 2 boxes with a jewelry and a chair. I did not go in the room until May the 30th, 2020.
Can I ask you a question? This picture that I'm looking at right now that says new Range Rover, his present to himself, when did you get a new Range Rover, Mr. Denson?
A couple of weeks ago. Ma'am, can I say this? The police was called.
Can I ask you a question? You got a condo, you got a new Range Rover, and you filed this case as an indigent and didn't pay court costs. My hubby just picked up this BMW Z4, adding to his fleet. You got a fleet and you're filing as an indigent?
Well,
All right. Did you get that picture of that sprinkler? Let's see it. Oh, you brought the sprinkler out. Okay. So who ends up they get all their stuff out when?
The 31st of May.
Okay. So the pictures you took were before the 31st of May, or is that what they left?
On the 30th of May, I took those pictures, Your Honor. That was the first time I went in the room.
Okay. So they take this stuff out on the 31st.
She came, I called her, I say,
yes or no? I just want a yes or a no.
Yes.
Did they take their stuff out?
31st
All right, so
of
then
May,
why
she
are you
took the
withholding
chair,
$100 for cleaning?
for the room? Yo-Yo, my housekeeper, came over and she cleaned the room. We tore up the carpet because the bathroom and everything.
No, you need to listen to me. The only way you can keep $100 from a security deposit for cleaning is if you show me that you had to clean because of them, not that you cleaned. I would have cleaned too.
No, I said
but
it to you,
you
Your
have
Honor.
to prove to
It's
me.
in
You
there.
got to
It's
stop
right here.
talking over me. Stop talking over
I'm
me.
sorry.
You have to prove
It's
to
right here.
me that they left it in a condition that required you to spend another $100. When I asked you about these pictures, you told me you took them on the 30th. If they left on the 31st, and I asked you, did they take their stuff? And you said yes, show me pictures that show that they left something that would require it. Otherwise,
Your
no.
Honor, could I finish say what I was saying? Every
When did you
second
change a
time
lock?
I was-
No, I'm not interested. I want to know when you change the locks. When did you change the locks?
I don't want to do
June the 1st.
Show me a receipt for the lock changing.
I ain't got time.
There you go, Your Honor.
Who changed the lock? You did?
Yes.
Okay, I see that you changed that you bought a lock on the 31st.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Denson, did you attempt to go back there to take either a bicycle or whatever else was left behind?
We moved, Your Honor, yes, we moved out on the 10th. The police was called to Mr. Rose. I have the police report. They went to the Solomon's house on the 10th, and they told Mrs. Solomon she could not go in that room since she was not returning the monthly rent. We moved out of there on the 10th. The police recalled, we have a police
Can
report.
I see
They went.
Let me see the police report.
You can't see it because
You can't see
it was
it
in our items.
everything
and she
of
and
our
Yo-Yo
items
touched them.
was receipts.
So you don't have a police report to show me?
Because they.
Is that a
touched
yes
my
or a no?
belongings.
Do you have a police report for me to look at?
I can get the case. I can get the
get it
case in
for you.
5 minutes. I can call the police precinct and get the police report. and
You go ahead. You go call the precinct. Leave your wife here. That's great. You go try that. Let me ask you, Ms. Solomon, you have a lawsuit for $5,000 for defamation. What's that about?
Your Honor, I regret even coming in this case. First of all, I did that.
Can you answer my question? Everybody needs to stop. Listen, you guys can go to church and talk to a pastor and mediate your friendship all you want. Right now, I just want to rule on this case. You have a lawsuit for $5,000 for defamation. Mr. Solomon, tell me what the cause of action is for defamation.
Because he went to the church and told the pastors, different pastors, about our situation at the house. He went and told them a bunch of lies, pretty much.
Okay, did you ever speak to the pastor?
Yes, I spoke to Pastor Chansley.
And what did the pastor say to you had happened?
He told me that Mr. Porter came and told him that Mr. Solomon cursed him out. He said to him, we know Deacon Solomon, he's always quiet. What happened? Why he have to say something to you?
Okay, so then where's the defamation? Then there's no hurt. There's no damage to you because nothing happened with that.
A judge can say something as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
They did not give us 15 days notice they were leaving.
Mother's Day,
Well,
I
let
was
me
with
ask you a
Miss Rena in
question.
my
Did you
home.
give him, stop a second. If we want to get technical, let's ask you. Did you send them a letter notifying them of your intent as a landlord to keep their security deposit? Because you're supposed to do that
Yes.
in 15 days.
Yes, ma'am. You
Oh,
should
let
have,
me
you
see the
should have it in your
letter.
record.
Let me see the letter. I don't have
You
the
should have it
letter
in
in
your record.
evidence, so let me see the letter.
This is the letter. You should have it in your file. I did send it to him.
Hold still.
It's a,
Is that June?
June 27.
That's ridiculous.
Did you ever get a letter?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay.
They got it because that's when her husband started calling me some more nasty messages.
Do you have proof they
Plus,
got it?
Yeah.
I have the certified copy right here, ma'am.
Go up. Put your hand. Okay.
Camera.
Yeah, I'm curious. Did you, according to you, Ms. Denson, you never got that?
Correct.
They've got the proof of mailing. In any event, look, it doesn't matter because I don't want you folks to have any more unnecessary contact on this issue anyway. So I'm going to resolve everything here. And I want to hear from Mr. Denson. Were you able to get a police report?
Yes, ma'am. The case number is W.
No, I don't want a case number. Do you have a police report?
No, that's
I'm
the
not
case number they gave
doing
me.
litigants' work for them. I need you to tell me, do you have a police report to show me, yes or no?
Oh, to show.
No, they don't have a police report, but they did it on the 12th
Okay.
of May.
No, that's just you. Okay, that's you talking. That's not giving me something from the police that says it happened on the 12th of May. But was there a police action in the middle of May at your house,
Yes,
Mr. Solomon?
Yes, he called the police.
And what happened? And this was in the middle of May?
Yeah.
And what did he call the police about?
Because I called the police on him for harassment.
You called the police on him for harassment.
Yes, ma'am, because I was tired of his phone call. So he called him and me.
All right. Can you prove,
But he was-
you have said, no, stop talking, I'm talking now. Mr. Denson, can you prove that they changed the locks before May? Because he's got a receipt for a lock on May 31st. So I just need some proof that he changed the lock before May 31st, because that's your premise on why you should get rent back.
Well, the Winter Park Police said when they went out to Mr. Solomon and Dr. Rose and spoke to them, they told them that they could not go in the room. He did an incident
You can
report,
repeat yourself 100 times, but in court we deal with proof. So I would have to see proof, and I'm not seeing proof. So you are not going to get your May rent refunded. There is a $300 security deposit. You have proven to me the oil issue, and you have proven to me the sprinkler issue. I'm allowing you to keep, for the removal of the oil and for the sprinkler, a total of $100. As for the rest of the security deposit, I'm ordering you to return $200. I am not ordering you to return May, because you are right. You don't get to pay May, leave, and then say, oh, and I'm leaving and I want back what I paid in May. I do not find that the locks were changed. I don't find there's sufficient proof that locks were changed in May, because I see a receipt for a lock change after May. And they had left. And according to Ms. Denson, in no uncertain terms, she had said, I chose to leave, I chose to leave, I chose to leave. So I'm not ordering that. So it's $200, verdict for the plaintiffs. And as for your counterclaim on defamation, no, you haven't been able to prove that. On the sprinkler and the oil, I've already handled. On the changing of the locks, I think you would have done that anyway after they left. So that's my verdict. You get to keep $100 of the security deposit. The other $200 you have to return to the Densons. Goodbye, folks.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a
Getting nothing.
So the judge has made her decision now. The plaintiffs do get something back, not what they were seeking. And of course, the defendants get very little. They didn't get any of the $5,000 they were asking for. Let's find out how they feel about it. Ms. Solomon, Mr. Solomon, what is your opinion right now of what the judge just decided?
It's okay. I didn't want to be here, but I come because I want to show Mr. Denson he cannot go around and sue good people, and I'm a good people, but I leave him to time. I'm good. I'm not worrying about it. The $5,000, I know I wouldn't get it, but if I did, I want to donate to domestic violence, because he's a man that think he could control women, and rude, obnoxious, and I wish him all the best. I thought Miss Denson and I could talk, but I would never have nothing more to do with her. And good luck to y'all. And I'll see you on the other side.
All right, Ms. Denson, let me ask you how you feel about the outcome of the case. You're only getting $200 back. What do you think?
Can I talk?
What'd you want to say, Mr. Denison?
That Mr. Solomon is a liar, and a husband is a person that sits under her. So he's not a man, so she rules him. So when she see a strong man, I'm an American. I didn't come from another country. I was born American, and I'm a strong man. I take care of my family. He lives off of his wife, so she likes a weak man. So when she see a strong man, she doesn't like that. I'm sorry that she have to live like that, because she pays his way. I pay my wife way. That's the difference.
Have a great day.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. That'll wrap up the case. There's a lot to this feud. Let's see what the judges have to say about it. Here now, another session of After the Verdict.
Wow. Marilyn, you are probably not of the same mold as the Ozzie and Harriet, father knows best, strong man in the household.
Yeah, what do you...
situation. You kind of break that mold a little bit, and I think most of America
I think that mold went out with the Ozzie and Harriet.
Right.
And the funny part is that the plaintiff just kind of thought it was okay to keep pounding on that when his judge is a woman.
Right.
Like, I don't think he's he's joined the decade we're in.
It's so funny, and obviously I knew I was going to get a strong woman when I met you, because my good friend from the U.S. Attorney's Office kind of gave me a heads up when I was dating you.
That's right. He warned you. She's a tough woman.
That's exactly
Little
what he
did he
said.
know that you came from a long line of tough women.
That's right.
That's of course utterly ridiculous that he keep pounding on that.
Of course. And you know, looking back at some of the facts of the case, the idea that the plaintiffs are saying, hey, we were locked out in early May or mid-May or something, and then the defendants produce the receipt for the lock, and it's May 31, that kind of puts the lie to the idea that they excluded us from the house by locking us out earlier on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I love this question. It is from Bob, and he says, Harvey, I was thinking of buying a car, and took it to a mechanic to check it out, and he charged me $75. He said the car had a million problems, so I didn't buy it. But the mechanic turned around and he bought it. Can I get my $75 back? Well, Bob, here's the deal about that. You cannot get your $75 back just because the mechanic wants it, because remember, the mechanic may have the ability to fix a million problems. However, if he lied to you and he said it had a million problems and it didn't, so he could buy it, then you got a case. We'll see you next time.